In the sprawling metropolis of Nova Arbor, a city where Earth's cultures had merged with the influx of interstellar visitors, there was a little cafe tucked into the shadows of neon towers. Its sign flickered occasionally. The Comet's Tail. And inside, the smell of roasted coffee mingled with the sharper tang of intergalactic spices. It was a place where beings of all shapes and sizes could sit at mismatched tables, sipping drinks and sharing stories without the usual stares that came with living on a planet still adjusting to its place in the galactic community. Zane Davis, a 30-something coder with a wardrobe that consisted mostly of hoodies and jeans, had made the Comet's Tail his refuge. He liked the quiet hum of alien conversations, the way the cafe's artificial atmosphere adjusted to accommodate different respiratory needs, and most importantly, the fact that no one there ever asked him about deadlines. This particular afternoon, he was halfway through a cup of Strixian brew, an acquired taste, bitter with a kick of citrus, when he noticed her. At first, Zane thought she was just another tourist. The city saw its fair share of Threxians, tall, lithe beings with iridescent skin that shimmered like sunlight on water. But something about her was different. She wasn't hurriedly snapping holophotos or struggling to decipher Earth menus like most off-worlders. Instead, she sat alone at a table near the window, a small notebook in her hand, her luminescent skin flickering faintly as she scribbled in an intricate script that looked more like art than writing. When her eyes met his, Zane felt an odd jolt. Threxian eyes were unnerving, pupil-less orbs that seemed to pulse softly, their colors shifting like mood rings. Hers were a calm blue-green, the kind of shade that made him think of tropical oceans and the synthetic aquarium backdrops in tourist ads. "Take a picture, human," she said, her voice lilting but teasing. "It lasts longer." Zane blinked, realizing too late that he had been staring. "Sorry," he said, raising his cup in an awkward salute. "Didn't mean to, gawk." "You're forgiven." She closed her notebook and tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him shift in his seat. "Do all humans spend their afternoons brooding over drinks, or is it just you?" "I don't brood," Zane replied, trying for indignation and landing somewhere closer to defensive. "I'm thinking." "About?" "Work," he lied. In truth, he had been contemplating whether he could afford to buy a new gaming console before the end of the month. Not exactly the kind of introspection that earned points in conversations with mysterious alien women. She didn't press the issue, instead gesturing to his mug. "You're drinking Strixian brew. Bold choice for someone who looks like they'd prefer the safety of Earth espresso." "I like to live dangerously," Zane shot back, surprising himself with the quip. Her laugh was soft but genuine, a sound that reminded him of wind chimes. "Well, dangerous human, I'm Kari. And you are?" "Zane." He hesitated, then added, "Just Zane. No fancy interstellar titles or glowing skin, I'm afraid." Kari's smile widened, revealing teeth that were slightly sharper than human ones. "Nice to meet you, Just Zane." Their conversation unfolded easily after that. Kari explained that she was an anthropologist, or the Threxian equivalent, studying human culture during her stay on Earth. She found it fascinating, she said, how humans navigated their lives with such chaos, their technology crude but charming, their customs alternately baffling and endearing. "Take your cafes, for example," she said, gesturing around them. "On my homeworld, communal spaces are designed for efficiency. You go in, you get what you need, you leave. But here, you linger, you sit, you talk to strangers." She paused, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "Or stare at them until they call you out." Zane chuckled, raising his hands in surrender. "Guilty. But hey, maybe we just like to slow down and enjoy things. Not everything has to be about efficiency." "Spoken like someone who's never tried to wait in line for a resource distributor during a solar storm," Kari said dryly. As the hours slipped by, Zane found himself surprisingly at ease. Kari's wit was sharp, but there was a warmth to her that made him forget she was technically an alien. They talked about everything from human films — Kari found horror movies hilariously implausible — to Threxian art, which apparently involves sculpting sound waves into visible patterns. Your people would love it, she said. You're obsessed with making everything aesthetic. Guilty again, Zane admitted. But in our defense, the universe is a better place with a little extra sparkle. Even if the sparkle comes from glitter glue and sequins, especially then. The afternoon might have ended there, just another pleasant conversation between a human and an alien passing through. But fate, or more accurately, clumsiness, had other plans. As Zane got up to leave, his foot caught on the strap of his bag, sending him stumbling into Kari's table. Her drink, a pale, glowing liquid that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie, toppled over, splashing across her notebook. "Oh, crap," Zane blurted, fumbling for napkins. "I'm so sorry." "It's fine," Kari said quickly, though her skin flickered an annoyed shade of orange. She lifted the notebook, shaking off the liquid, with an air of resignation. "This happens more often than you'd think." "Really?" Zane asked, wincing as he tried to mop up the mess. "Do a lot of humans trip over themselves to ruin your stuff?" Kari smirked. "Not humans, specifically, just you." For a moment, he thought she might be serious, but then her eyes twinkled, and the orange hue faded, replaced by a soft silver glow. And just like that, Zane found himself laughing, an unguarded, genuine laugh he hadn't felt in weeks. "Well," Kari said, rising to her feet and offering him her hand, "if this is the kind of chaos you bring, just Zane, I think I'll keep you around." And as they stepped out of the cafe together, Zane couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a very unexpected turn. It had been 6 months since Zane's first meeting with Kari at the Comet's Tail, and his life had taken on a distinctly surreal flavor. His once ordinary days of coding and late-night gaming had been replaced with regular outings to alien markets, bizarre museums, and even the occasional virtual tour of Kari's homeworld. He'd learned more about Threxian culture than he'd ever thought possible, and also discovered just how much trouble one human could get into when navigating alien customs. Kari, for her part, had become a fixture in Zane's life. Her sharp humor and insatiable curiosity made her the perfect companion for everything from exploring Earth's quirks to debating the merits of pineapple on pizza. Her verdict: it's an affront to both logic and decency. She'd even started picking up some of Zane's human mannerisms, occasionally using Earth slang with the kind of exaggerated emphasis that suggested she found it endlessly amusing. But for all their shared laughs and adventures, Zane couldn't shake the feeling that Kari had been acting off lately. She'd been unusually fidgety during their last few hangouts, her bioluminescent skin flickering in restless patterns. And then, one evening, she showed up at his apartment unannounced. "Zane?" she said the moment he opened the door, her voice unusually serious. "We need to talk." Zane blinked, his brain scrambling to remember if he'd forgotten something important, like her birthday or a Threxian holiday. Sure, come in." Kari stepped inside, her movements unusually stiff. She glanced around his cluttered living room, where empty coffee mugs and scattered gaming controllers bore witness to Zane's recent creative slump. Her eyes landed on his sofa, where Bob the Space Jelly, a gift from Kari herself, was gently pulsing in its floating habitat. "Good to see Bob still alive," she muttered absently, before turning back to Zane. "He's thriving," Zane said, trying to lighten the mood. "I even caught him humming along to my playlist the other day." Kari didn't laugh. Instead, she clasped her hands together and took a deep breath, her skin shifting to a pale lavender, a color Zane had learned to associate with nervousness. "Okay, you're freaking me out," Zane said. "What's going on?" Kari hesitated, then blurted out, "My family wants us to get married, human." For a moment, the words didn't register. Zane stared at her, his brain replaying the sentence like a scratched record. "Your family wants what now?" "Marriage," Kari repeated, her tone matter-of-fact, though her skin betrayed her tension. "They've been monitoring my progress here on Earth, and they've concluded that our relationship has reached a point where formalization is appropriate." Zane sat down heavily on the couch, his mind spinning. "Okay, hold up. First of all, we're not in a relationship. We're just friends." In Threxian culture, Prolonged interactions between a male and female, especially those involving shared meals and emotional exchanges, are typically viewed as precursors to courtship. Well, that's news to me. Zane rubbed the back of his neck, trying to process the information. And your family just assumes we're, what, dating? Kari nodded, her expression grim. Not just dating, courting with the intent of union. Zane let out a strangled laugh. That escalated quickly. It's not as sudden as it seems, Kari said, her voice edged with exasperation. I've been sending them updates about my time here, and they've been interpreting those updates through the lens of Threxian customs. Apparently, my descriptions of our friendship, your humor, your kindness, your attempts to explain your world's baffling obsession with reality television, have convinced them that you are a suitable mate. Zane gaped at her. You told them about reality TV? Kari waved a hand dismissively. That's not the point. The point is they've already started planning a formal introduction ceremony, and if we don't provide a compelling reason to delay, they'll assume we're ready to proceed with the next steps. What are the next steps? Consortium rituals, shared residence agreements, offspring planning. Zane's jaw dropped. Offspring? I haven't even figured out how to keep a houseplant alive. Kari sighed, her lavender hues deepening. I know this is a lot to take in. Believe me, I'm just as blindsided as you are, but Threxian family expectations are unyielding. For a long moment, the room was silent, except for the soft hum of Bob the space jelly, who was now hovering closer to Zane, as if offering moral support. Okay, Zane said finally, his voice tinged with forced calm. Let's say we don't want to get married, which, for the record, I'm pretty sure we don't. What happens then? Kari grimaced. If I refuse without a valid reason, my family will assume there's something wrong with me. It could damage my standing back home, and possibly jeopardize my work here. Zane frowned. That's ridiculously unfair. Welcome to intergalactic family dynamics, Kari said dryly. Zane leaned back against the couch, his mind churning. He liked Kari. A lot, actually. But marriage? That was a level of commitment he hadn't even considered for anyone, let alone a Threxian anthropologist who thought pineapple pizza was an affront to logic. Still, the thought of Kari being ostracized by her family because of a misunderstanding didn't sit right with him. Okay, he said slowly. What if we, I don't know, played along? Just enough to convince your family we're taking things seriously, and then we figure out a way to back out gracefully later. Kari raised an eyebrow, her skin shifting to a thoughtful teal. You'd be willing to do that? Yeah, Zane said, surprising himself with his own conviction. I mean, it's not like we're actually getting married. We're just stalling, right? Kari's lips curved into a small wry smile. Right, just stalling. Great, Zane said, clapping his hands together. How hard can it be? As if on cue, Kari's communicator beeped, and a holographic projection of her family's matriarch appeared in midair, a towering Threxian woman whose glowing skin radiated authority. Kari, the matriarch intoned, her voice echoing with regal precision. Is this the human you've chosen? Zane felt his stomach drop. Piece of cake, he muttered under his breath, before flashing an awkward smile at the hologram. Hi, I'm, just Zane. Kari shot him a look that said, We're doomed. Zane wasn't entirely sure what he had signed up for, but by the end of the first week, he was positive it wasn't this. Dating a Threxian is like trying to assemble an intergalactic flat-pack cabinet, he grumbled, running a hand through his already tousled hair. Instructions don't make sense, the parts don't fit, and at some point you realize you're the one being held together with glue and sheer willpower. Kari snorted, a rare but delightful sound. She was perched on his couch, her legs crossed in a way that looked impossibly graceful. If it's any consolation, you're doing better than I expected. Thanks, Zane said, not entirely sure if that was a compliment. The week had been a whirlwind of cultural experiments, awkward misunderstandings, and to Zane's dismay, a lot of taste-testing alien cuisine. It wasn't that he wasn't adventurous. He was. But some of the foods Kari introduced him to defied the laws of physics, not to mention his digestive system. Okay, Zane said, holding up a shimmering, gelatinous orb Kari had handed him. What is this? And is it going to try to eat me back? Kari tilted her head, her skin shifting to a cheerful gold. It's called Vexla, a Threxian delicacy. Don't chew it, just swallow it whole. Right, Zane muttered, eyeing the orb suspiciously, because nothing says romance like choking on alien jello. Kari's laugh was soft, but genuine. You'll be fine, probably. Their so-called dates were a crash course in interspecies relations. Kari was eager to immerse herself in human experiences, often dragging Zane into situations he would have otherwise avoided, like the karaoke night that would haunt him forever. The venue was packed with a mix of humans and aliens, the air thick with smoke and the scent of spilled drinks. Kari had insisted they participate, and before Zane could protest, she had signed them up for a duet. What are we singing? Zane asked warily as they stood backstage. It's called Don't Stop Believin', Kari said, her pronunciation slightly stilted as she read from the holographic prompter. It's a human classic, yes? Yeah, Zane said, suppressing a groan, but it's also a hard song. Maybe we should have started with something easier, like the alphabet. Kari smirked. Where's your sense of adventure? By the time they finished their performance, Kari's vibrating vocal cords causing a minor electrical surge in the speaker system, the crowd was in tears. Whether those tears were from laughter or second-hand embarrassment was anyone's guess. Despite the chaos, Zane couldn't deny that he was having fun. Kari's perspective on his world was both refreshing and humbling, her curiosity transforming mundane moments into mini-adventures. One afternoon, they visited an intergalactic market in the city's sprawling port district. The market was a kaleidoscope of colors, smells, and sounds, with vendors hawking everything from floating trinkets to gravity-defying scarves. Look at this, Kari said, picking up a small orb that shimmered like a tiny galaxy. What is it? Zane asked. A Threxian mood lamp, Kari explained. It reacts to the emotional energy of the room, very popular back home. As she spoke, the lamp began to pulse with a warm golden light. Zane raised an eyebrow. Does that mean we're happy? Kari smiled. It means I'm happy. You're probably just confused. Fair, Zane admitted. They wandered from stall to stall, Zane marveling at the sheer variety of alien goods. At one point, they stumbled upon a vendor selling what appeared to be edible flowers. Try one, Kari urged, holding out a petal that glowed faintly in the dim light. Zane hesitated. Is it going to turn me into something weird? Kari rolled her eyes. It's perfectly safe for humans. Probably. Probably doesn't inspire confidence. Just eat it, Zane. With a resigned sigh, Zane popped the petal into his mouth. It dissolved instantly, leaving behind a burst of sweetness that tasted like a cross between honey and citrus. Okay, he said, surprised. That's actually pretty good. Kari's skin shifted to a playful pink. See? I told you. As the days turned into weeks, Zane began to notice subtle changes in their dynamic. The playful banter that had defined their friendship was still there, but it was accompanied by moments of quiet connection, like the way Kari's eyes softened when she caught him smiling, or the way Zane found himself lingering on her laugh a little longer than he should. It wasn't love. Not yet, anyway. But it was something. One evening, as they sat on the roof of Zane's apartment building, watching the city lights twinkle below, Kari turned to him with a thoughtful expression. You know, she said, for all its flaws, your world has a certain charm. High praise coming from someone whose homeworld has glowing cities and floating gardens, Zane said, nudging her with his shoulder. Kari smiled. It's not just the places, it's the people. You humans are chaotic, unpredictable, and occasionally infuriating, but you're also kind, resilient, and endlessly curious. It's why I chose this planet for my research. Well, Zane said, pretending to preen. "We aim to impress." Kari laughed, the sound carrying softly into the night. For a moment they sat in comfortable silence, the distant hum of the city their only backdrop. And as Zane glanced at Kari, her skin glowing faintly in the moonlight, he couldn't help but think that for all the challenges ahead, maybe, just maybe, this crazy interstellar journey was worth it. Zane had faced many challenges in his life: coding bugs that refused to fix themselves, his mom's attempts at fusion cuisine, and that one time he thought it would be a good idea to run a marathon without training. But nothing could have prepared him for meeting Kari's family. "This isn't going to be as bad as you're imagining," Kari said as she adjusted the settings on her portable holo transmitter. Zane glanced at the swirling, faintly ominous blue portal forming in the middle of his living room. "You mean the portal that looks like it's about to suck us into another dimension isn't a bad sign?" Kari's bioluminescent skin flickered with amusement. "It's a communication portal, not a black hole. Stop being so dramatic." "Dramatic? Me?" Zane pointed at the swirling vortex. "That thing is humming like it's charging up to erase my existence." Kari rolled her eyes. "Just remember, be polite, answer their questions honestly, and try not to make any jokes about tentacles." "Why would I? Never mind." Zane took a deep breath and tried to center himself. "Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this." The portal stabilized with a soft whoosh, and a holographic image of Kari's family shimmered into view. The sight was both awe-inspiring and slightly intimidating. Kari's relatives were taller than she was, their glowing skin radiating authority, and they wore intricate garments that seemed to shift colors with their movements. "Kari," the matriarch said, her voice calm but commanding. "And this is the human you've chosen?" Zane stepped forward awkwardly, raising a hand in a small wave. "Hi, I'm Zane. Nice to holographically meet you." Kari's brother, a younger Threxian with mischievous yellow tones in his skin, smirked. "So this is the human? He's smaller than I expected." "Small but mighty," Zane said, trying to sound confident. "And I've got opposable thumbs, so you know, that's something." Kari pinched the bridge of her nose. "Zane." The matriarch raised a glowing eyebrow, but said nothing. "Right, sorry," Zane said, clearing his throat. "It's an honor to meet you all. Kari's told me a lot about her family." The matriarch inclined her head slightly. "Good. Then you'll understand why this union is so significant. Kari has always been an exceptional member of our clan, and we expect her chosen partner to be equally exceptional." "No pressure," Zane muttered under his breath. Kari's father, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. His voice was deep and resonant, like the rumble of distant thunder. "Tell us, human, what qualities do you bring to this partnership?" Zane blinked, caught off guard. Well, I'm good at problem solving, and I'm pretty handy with a computer. Oh, and I make a mean grilled cheese." Kari's brother snorted. "Grilled cheese?" "It's a human delicacy," Zane said defensively. "Bread, cheese, butter. What's not to love?" The matriarch looked unimpressed. "Kari, does this human truly understand the responsibilities of joining our family?" Before Kari could answer, Zane jumped in. "I may not understand everything about Threxian culture yet, but I'm willing to learn, and I care about Kari. She's smart, funny, and honestly one of the coolest beings I've ever met. So yeah, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." Kari's skin shifted to a soft lavender, a clear sign of her surprise, and was that admiration? The matriarch studied Zane for a long moment before finally speaking. "Very well. If you are to be a part of this family, you will need to prove your commitment. There is a tradition among our people, a test of compatibility." Zane swallowed hard. "Test? What kind of test?" Kari winced. "It's not as bad as it sounds." "That's exactly what people say before they drop you into a pit of lava monsters," Zane muttered. The test turned out to be a virtual simulation, accessed via Threxian technology that Kari set up in Zane's living room. The device looked like a sleek, glowing helmet, and when Zane put it on, The world around him dissolved into a surreal, hyper-realistic landscape. You'll be navigating a series of challenges designed to assess your compatibility with Kari, the matriarch's voice explained, echoing in his ears. No pressure, Zane said again, mostly to himself. The first challenge was relatively simple, a puzzle that required teamwork. Zane and Kari worked together to assemble a series of glowing panels, their movements surprisingly in sync. Not bad, Kari said, as the final panel clicked into place. Teamwork makes the dream work, Zane quipped, earning an eye roll from Kari. The second challenge was less simple. They were tasked with navigating a maze filled with holographic creatures that reacted unpredictably to their presence. Why do they all look like angry space chickens? Zane asked, as one of the creatures lunged at him, squawking furiously. Focus, Zane, Kari called, firing a plasma beam to clear their path. Right, sorry, Zane said, ducking under a low-hanging holographic vine. But seriously, they're like chickens on steroids. By the time they reached the final challenge, Zane was exhausted, but oddly exhilarated. The simulation had forced them to rely on each other in ways they hadn't before, and he felt a newfound respect for Kari's quick thinking and resourcefulness. The final challenge involved a decision. They had to choose between two paths, each with unknown consequences. What do you think? Zane asked, turning to Kari. She studied the paths thoughtfully, her skin flickering with uncertainty. I think we need to trust each other. Zane nodded. Okay, let's go left. They stepped forward together, and the simulation dissolved around them. When Zane removed the helmet, he found himself back in his living room, Kari sitting beside him with a small smile. You did well, she said softly. The portal flickered, and the matriarch's voice filled the room. The human has proven himself adequate. Zane raised an eyebrow. Adequate? That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Kari laughed, and for a moment the tension melted away. As the portal closed, Zane leaned back against the couch, feeling both relieved and strangely accomplished. Next time, he said, let's just invite them over for grilled cheese. Kari smiled, her skin glowing with warmth. I think they'd hate it, but I'd love to see you try. Zane wasn't entirely sure how intergalactic weddings worked, but he was starting to suspect they didn't involve cake tastings or picking out floral arrangements. This, he said, gesturing at the floating holographic blueprint Kari had projected into the air, doesn't look like a wedding venue. It looks like a weapons testing facility. Kari's skin glimmered with faint amusement. That's because it's not just a wedding venue. It's a bonding chamber designed to harmonize the energies of two life forms and forge an unbreakable connection. Zane squinted at the blueprint. And the spikes on the walls? Are those for aesthetics, or am I going to need some serious health insurance? Kari rolled her eyes. They're symbolic. And they're not sharp, so stop worrying. I'll stop worrying when I'm not getting married in what looks like a villain's lair, Zane muttered. Planning the wedding, or ceremonial convergence, as Kari called it, was a cross-cultural exercise in chaos. Kari's family had strong opinions on nearly every detail, from the attire, you'll wear the ceremonial robes of our ancestors, her mother had decreed, to the guest list. Do you think we can fit 200 Threxians in a human venue? Zane had asked, his voice tinged with panic. The biggest hurdle, however, was the food. Threxian cuisine emphasizes harmony between flavors and energy, Kari explained as she set a plate of shimmering, translucent spheres in front of Zane. Zane poked one of the spheres with a fork. It wobbled ominously. What happens if the energy isn't harmonious? Kari's skin flickered pink with amusement. You'll find out. Against his better judgment, Zane popped the sphere into his mouth. The initial burst of flavor was pleasant, sweet and tangy, but it was quickly followed by a sensation that could only be described as electric. Oh my God, Zane choked out, fanning his mouth. Is this food or a battery? Kari laughed. It's an acquired taste. Well, I'm acquiring a glass of water, Zane grumbled, reaching for the pitcher. Amidst the chaos of planning, Zane and Kari found moments of levity that reminded them why they were doing this in the first place. One evening, Kari introduced Zane to the Threxian tradition of bonding dances, an intricate series of movements meant to symbolize unity and balance. "You want me to dance?" Zane asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "It's not that hard," Kari said, demonstrating a graceful spin. Her movements were fluid and precise, her glowing skin leaving faint trails of light in the air. Zane attempted to mimic her, only to trip over his own feet and stumble into the couch. "Graceful," Kari said dryly. "Hey, I'm a work in progress," Zane shot back, brushing himself off. "Besides, I'm pretty sure your ancestors didn't have to do this on carpet." Kari's laughter filled the room, and for a moment the tension melted away. As the wedding day approached, Zane began to notice subtle changes in Kari. She was more reserved, her usual playful demeanor tempered by an undercurrent of worry. "Hey," he said one evening, as they sat on the roof of his apartment building. "What's on your mind?" Kari hesitated, her skin shifting to a soft lavender, a color Zane had come to associate with vulnerability. "It's just, this is a big step," she admitted. "For both of us. I know you're trying, but I can't help wondering if I'm asking too much of you." Zane reached over and took her hand, his fingers brushing against her bioluminescent skin. "Kari, you've already dragged me into a maze of angry space chickens, introduced me to food that doubles as a power source, and made me wear glowing robes that make me look like a disco ball. If I wasn't all in, I'd have bailed a long time ago." Kari smiled, the faint glow of her skin warming to a soft gold. "Thank you, Zane, for everything." "Hey," Zane said, grinning, "what are intergalactic best friends turned fiancés for?" The night before the wedding, Zane received an unexpected visitor, Kari's younger brother, Tyron. "Zane," Tyron said, his tone unusually serious. "A word." "Sure," Zane said, though he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to be interrogated. Tyron led him to the roof, where the city's light stretched out like a sea of stars. "I'll be honest," Tyron said, leaning against the railing. "When Kari told us about you, I was skeptical. Humans are, well, let's just say you have a reputation for being impulsive and short-sighted." "Wow," Zane said. "Don't hold back on my account." Tyron's lips quirked into a faint smile. "But I've been watching you, and while you're definitely impulsive, you're also loyal, determined, and willing to adapt. That's more than I expected." "Is this your way of saying you don't hate me?" Zane asked, raising an eyebrow. "It's my way of saying you've earned my respect," Tyron said. "Take care of my sister, human. She deserves the best." "I'll do my best," Zane promised. The wedding day arrived with all the fanfare one would expect from a Threxian ceremony. The bonding chamber was a breathtaking fusion of human and Threxian aesthetics, its glowing walls pulsating in rhythm with the attendees' collective energy. Zane stood at the center of the chamber, dressed in his ceremonial robes. He felt ridiculous, but the awe in the crowd's eyes suggested he at least looked the part. Kari entered moments later, her glowing gown shimmering like starlight. Zane's breath caught in his throat. "Wow," he said as she approached. "You look incredible." "You don't look too bad yourself," Kari replied, her skin flickering with soft gold. The ceremony was a blur of rituals and vows, each step a testament to the bond they had forged, and as they stood together in the center of the chamber, their hands entwined, Zane realized that, for all its challenges, this journey had been worth it. "Ready for forever?" Kari asked, her voice soft but steady. "Ready as I'll ever be," Zane replied, a grin tugging at his lips. And as the chamber filled with light, sealing their bond, Zane couldn't help but think that marrying an alien woman was the most human thing he'd ever done. If Zane had imagined a honeymoon with Kari, he'd probably have envisioned something relaxing, maybe a beach, some sunsets, a lot of downtime. What he hadn't envisioned was being strapped into a gravity harness on a ship that looked like it had been borrowed from a sci-fi blockbuster. "This is your idea of a honeymoon?" Zane asked, his voice muffled by the helmet Kari had handed him. Kari, perfectly at ease in her sleek Threxian flight suit, grinned at him. What's wrong? Don't humans enjoy a little adventure? A little adventure is ziplining or maybe a hot air balloon ride, Zane said. He gestured at the ship around them. This is an intergalactic space cruise, with no safety rails. Kari's laugh was warm and unbothered. Relax, human. The safety systems on Threxian ships are state-of-the-art. You're more likely to get injured on one of your Earth vehicles. Yeah, but Earth vehicles don't fly through asteroid fields for fun, Zane muttered. Kari tilted her head, her glowing skin flickering with amusement. You're going to love it. Trust me. The ship's captain, a towering Threxian with an aura of authority and a penchant for dramatic flourishes, greeted them in the command deck. Welcome aboard the Celestial Harmonizer, he said, his voice booming. I understand this is a special voyage for you two. Special, sure, Zane said, still adjusting his gravity harness. But if we could avoid anything involving wormholes, I'd appreciate it. The captain's glowing skin flickered in what Zane assumed was amusement. We'll do our best, human. Kari elbowed Zane gently. You're embarrassing me. What? I'm just being thorough, Zane said, holding up his hands. You can't tell me wormholes aren't a possibility on this thing. Kari shook her head, but her smile betrayed her amusement. The first leg of the journey was surprisingly smooth. The ship's interior was a marvel of Threxian engineering, with sleek corridors that glowed faintly and expansive observation decks that offered breathtaking views of the stars. This is actually pretty amazing, Zane admitted as he stood by the observation window. Kari joined him, her hand brushing against his. See? I told you it would be worth it. They watched as the ship glided past a massive nebula, its vibrant colors swirling like an ethereal painting. Okay, Zane said, leaning closer to the glass. I'll give you this one. Honeymoon points. Kari, 1. Zane, 0. Kari laughed. Don't worry. You'll get a chance to earn some points later. Their first stop was a Threxian resort planet known as Larios 5, famed for its floating cities and bioluminescent oceans. This place is unreal, Zane said as they stepped onto the planet's surface. The air shimmered with faint light, and the ground beneath them seemed to hum softly. Kari gestured to the ocean, where glowing creatures danced beneath the waves. Larios 5 is known for its natural beauty. It's also home to some of the best cuisine in the galaxy. Please tell me the food won't electrocute me this time, Zane said, eyeing a nearby vendor selling what looked like glowing noodles. Kari smirked. No promises. Despite his initial hesitation, Zane found himself enjoying the local delicacies. One dish, a Threxian dessert that resembled a floating orb of liquid light, was particularly memorable. This is incredible, he said, savoring the dessert's sweet, tangy flavor. Kari's skin flickered with approval. I'm impressed. You're adapting to Threxian food much faster than I expected. Yeah, well, I'm motivated by love and a fear of starving, Zane joked. The next part of their journey took them to a remote Threxian moon, where they participated in a bonding ritual unique to Kari's clan. This ritual is meant to strengthen our connection, Kari explained as they stood in a sacred grove surrounded by glowing tree-like structures. Strengthen our connection? Zane repeated, glancing at the strange, pulsating vines that covered the grove. What exactly does that involve? Don't worry, Kari said with a reassuring smile. Just follow my lead. The ritual involved weaving their energy, represented by glowing threads of light, into a shared pattern. It was surprisingly calming, and Zane found himself marveling at the way their threads intertwined, creating a design that pulsed with warmth. Not bad for a human, Kari teased as they completed the ritual. Not bad for an alien, Zane shot back, earning a laugh. Their honeymoon wasn't without its challenges, of course. At one point, they found themselves caught in the middle of a minor diplomatic dispute between two alien species. Let me get this straight, Zane said, rubbing his temples. We're stuck here because these two groups can't agree on which side of the space station has the better view. Kari sighed. Diplomacy can be tedious. Tedious? This is like arguing over who gets the window seat on a plane, Zane said. Despite the absurdity of the situation, Zane managed to diffuse the tension with an impromptu joke about space tourism. "You're surprisingly good at this," Kari said afterward. "Years of practice dealing with stubborn co-workers," Zane replied with a grin. As their honeymoon drew to a close, Zane and Kari found themselves back on the celestial harmonizer, reflecting on their journey. "This was not what I expected," Zane admitted as they watched the stars from the observation deck. "Good or bad?" Kari asked, her glowing eyes fixed on his. "Good," Zane said, his voice soft. "Really good." Kari smiled, her skin glowing with warmth. "I'm glad." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the vastness of space stretching out before them. "You know," Zane said eventually, "if this is what life with you is going to be like, I think I'm okay with it." Kari laughed, her voice filled with joy. "Good, because this is only the beginning." And as the ship continued its journey through the stars, Zane realized that he wouldn't have it any other way. Zane never thought returning to Earth would feel so different. The streets of his city were the same, the skyline still a jagged silhouette against the smog-streaked sky, but something fundamental had shifted. Maybe it was him, or maybe it was the perspective gained from zipping through asteroid fields and watching alien sunrises with the woman he somehow managed to fall in love with. Kari walked beside him, her glowing skin toned down to a soft golden shimmer, a subtle adaptation for blending in on Earth. It wasn't perfect. She still turned heads, but at least no one had screamed alien invasion yet. "Your planet has an interesting aroma," Kari said, her nose twitching slightly. "That's the smell of hot dogs and questionable urban infrastructure," Zane replied, grinning. "Welcome home." Kari tilted her head. "You call this home now?" Zane hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I guess I do." Back at Zane's apartment, Kari moved through the space with a mix of curiosity and mild horror. "You live here?" she asked, holding up a mug with a faded World's Okayest Employee logo. "Hey," Zane said, snatching the mug back. "This is a bachelor pad. It has character." "It has dust," Kari retorted, running a finger along the windowsill. Her skin flickered a faint lavender of mock disapproval. Zane laughed. Okay, I'll admit it's not exactly intergalactic luxury, but it's cozy. Besides, it's ours now." Kari paused, her glowing eyes softening. "Ours?" "Ours," Zane said firmly. As they settled into their new life together, the cultural differences that had once seemed insurmountable began to feel like quirks rather than obstacles. Kari quickly became a hit at the local coffee shop, her natural curiosity leading to enthusiastic conversations with baristas about the alchemy of espresso making. Zane, meanwhile, found himself explaining Earth customs that Kari deemed ridiculously inefficient. "Why do you use paper currency?" she asked one evening, holding up a crumpled dollar bill. "Threxian systems are entirely digital." "Because it's tradition," Zane said, shrugging. "Plus, it's handy for tipping." Kari's skin flickered with amusement. "Your traditions are strange, but endearing." "Thanks," Zane said. "I think." One day, Kari surprised Zane by announcing that her family wanted to visit Earth. "Wait," Zane said, nearly choking on his coffee. "Your whole family?" Kari nodded, her skin glowing faintly. "They're curious about the place you call home, and they want to see how we're adjusting." Zane groaned. "This is going to be a disaster." "It'll be fine," Kari said, patting his arm. "Just don't serve them hot dogs." The Threxians arrived in style, their sleek, shimmering spacecraft touching down in a remote field under cover of night. Zane had prepared as best he could, stocking up on snacks, cleaning his apartment to an almost alarming degree, and even setting up a makeshift dining area in the building's communal rooftop garden. Kari's parents were as imposing as ever, but there was a warmth to their interactions that hadn't been there before. Her younger brother, Tyron, was surprisingly cordial, even cracking a joke about Earth's primitive technology. This is nice, Zane admitted as they shared a meal under the stars. Kari smiled, her glowing skin reflecting the soft light of the lanterns. See, I told you it would be fine. As the night wore on, Zane found himself deep in conversation with Kari's father, who had initially been the most skeptical about their relationship. You've surprised me, human, her father said, his tone gruff, but not unkind. When Kari first told us about you, I thought she was making a mistake, but seeing the bond you've built, I can admit when I'm wrong. Thanks, Zane said, feeling a swell of relief. That means a lot. Her father nodded. Take care of her. She's special. I know, Zane said. After her family departed, life settled into a new rhythm. Zane returned to work, though his desk job felt even more mundane after his adventures, and Kari began studying Earth's culture in earnest, often accompanying Zane on errands or exploring the city on her own. One evening, as they sat on the rooftop watching the sunset, Zane turned to Kari. You know, he said, a year ago, if someone told me I'd be married to an alien, I would have laughed in their face. Kari smirked. And now? Now I can't imagine life any other way, Zane said. Kari's skin glowed a warm gold, and she leaned closer to him. Neither can I. In the weeks that followed, Zane began to notice how much he'd changed. He was more patient, more open-minded, and less concerned with the opinions of others. Kari, too, seemed to have softened, her initial wariness of Earth giving way to a genuine affection for its quirks. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. One day, as they strolled through the park, Kari stopped abruptly, her glowing eyes fixed on Zane. What? He asked, confused. I've been thinking, she said, her tone serious, about how far we've come, about us. Zane's heart skipped a beat. And? Kari's lips curved into a smile. I think we're pretty amazing. Zane laughed, relief washing over him. Yeah, we are. And as they continued walking hand in hand, Zane realized that for all the challenges they'd faced, they'd built something extraordinary, a partnership that bridged worlds, defied expectations, and proved that love truly knows no boundaries.